Greetings, context, the cows, Gus T Renegade, and Justice, in to share constructive information about what racism is and how it works. Thank you all for tuning in to another broadcast of the cows. I hope it is informative. I hope the information is helpful. And if not, I hope you find something constructive to do with your time immediately. Do not waste time hanging out with us if you do not find the information helpful. I definitely want to make sure I let folks know we will be back in 2 days. I said Dr. Martin Kevorkian will be here over the weekend, which is true, but I believe I just got confirmation it will be a repeat. Dr. Martin Kevorkian and Mr. Khalid Patterson, they will both be making their third trip on the program, and nicely connected to what we will be talking about today. Dr. Kevorkian and Mr. Patterson, they'll be breaking down racism in film and how a lot of people go and watch films and don't even pick up on all the subtle aspects of racism that's in so many of the movies that come out. That will be this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So that should be very constructive and I think very much connected to today's broadcast. Our guest for today was recommended by Dr. Kamal Cambone. He raved about our guest's research. He said it was just incredible, some of the best work that he's seen on mind control and the way that thoughts and perceptions can be manipulated. And if you've been a consistent listener at the cows, you've heard other programs. I know Dr. Shanti was here and he talked about the psychotechnology of brainwashing, and the point that he overemphasized was that so-called brainwashing is not complete, it's not effective unless the victim doesn't know it's happening. And I think our guest today, I think he'll share a lot more information about why that's true. Real pleasure to have him. His website, it's linked in the description for this program. All you have to do is click his name, mindcontrolinamerica.com. Please check out the website and get more of his material. 13 years in the film industry. I think he's extremely knowledgeable on this subject. Cannot wait to get into his material. Our guest for today's program, Mr. Stephen Jacobson. Mr. Jacobson, are you with us?
Yes, I am. And happy to be with you, Gus. And again, call me Stephen. No need to be formal. My father's name was Mr. I'm just Stephen.
Will do, Stephen. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share some of your research with my listeners, and I hope they will check out the website and get more of your material. I guess could you give us kind of a brief background information about you and the work that you do so we get a little more informed before we hop into your material?
Sure, that'd be a good place to start. My background, how I got involved in investigating this particular topic. As you mentioned, I worked in the film industry for about 13 years. I had studied film at Boston University, and then worked in the industry in different capacities, but primarily as a film editor. And working as an editor, it was very easy to see how simple it is to change the meaning of an event or change the meaning of what someone says through simple editing. And so I was very well aware of how plastic and moldable media reality is. However, I didn't fully appreciate the extent to which we are all manipulated and controlled by mass media, including those people who work in it, until I was given the results of private medical research investigating programming and deprogramming. And I was given that material in 1980. I was working in New York City at the time as a film editor, and that opened up my eyes and ultimately led to my leaving the career that I was pursuing to investigate this whole issue of mind control and mental manipulation. Now, my interest in the subject goes back even further, from going to college and all. In fact, as far back as I can remember when I was growing up, I had questions that weren't being answered. As a child, I'm wondering what is going on here. I didn't understand. I knew I didn't understand, and I can remember 5 years old looking around and trying to make sense out of what is going on here, and I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't understand. I knew I didn't understand, and I go through public school. Still, I had questions. One of my questions was, how do I know what they're telling me is true? And I didn't know. And so, but your grades and your academic success is determined by your giving back what you receive in instruction. And so I became good at that. I gave them back what they wanted, but still, my questions weren't being answered, and that went through public school, all through high school, and get into college, and I still have the questions. What is really going on out here? And it just some things just didn't click. It didn't make sense. And I get out into the workplace, and I still have the same questions. I go through all this education, and I still don't feel that I know what's going on. And I knew I didn't. But I felt, well, I'll give it time. Someday, I had faith that it would be shown that desire was there. And working in film, and when 1980 came rolling around, a lot of things in my life came to a head, and it was when I was given the research, it was time for me to dig in and do my own homework and educate myself and answer these questions that I had for myself. And that was the beginning. My father was trained as a hypnotist, and he was a therapist. A hypnotherapist. He also a researcher, and he developed over a period of 11 years an audio called Personal Comfort Training. That at one time doctors wrote prescriptions for their patients to have this audio to aid in the treatment of different health problems, physical problems, psychological, emotional problems, a wide range of issues were addressed. For example, the majority of health problems are stress-related. Stress, anxiety, and tension are behind most, if not all, health problems. And it's our level of stress and anxiety for most people. They get a level of tension and stress that they become accustomed to and fear and think it's normal, and it's anything but normal. And it affects not only how we feel, but our thinking, our perception. If we are uptight and under stress, we're not going to see things in the same way as if we were at peace within ourselves and comfortable. Something that we know very naturally as children. Children know how to relax and be comfortable, but that is trained out of them or programmed out of them or out of us as we get older. And so the audio was a retraining program to help the patient or the listener guide them to deeper and deeper levels of a relaxed state, to know how it feels, to identify it in that way, and then be able to enter these relaxed states at will and function in them for extended periods. So some of the people who had respiratory ailments, emphysema, asthma, people who only had one lung, the audio was an aid in not only helping them relax, but increase their breathing capacity. Most people breathe very shallow, and they're not using the full breathing apparatus. That's not getting enough oxygen to the system, not oxygenating the blood, and getting enough oxygen to the brain and the nervous system. And so it's no wonder people can't think clearly. And this training, this audio, would help people slow down the breathing pattern, breathe in slowly and deeply, increase their breathing capacity, and their overall health would improve, and and the feeling of well-being. So back in 1980, while I was in New York City, I got a call from my father. He had some health issues at the time, and I went to see him, and I knew about the research, but we talked more extensively about it, and he wanted to know if I was interested in it. He was interested in turning it over to me. And I saw the implications as far as the media was concerned in my work, and I was very interested in it, and so it was all turned over to me. I took it back to New York City and began work with it, using the audio one myself and going through the research materials. At the same time, people were always giving him information, books, whatnot. He would help people if they. It didn't matter if they could pay or not. If they couldn't pay, he'd still work with them, and very often he'd get paid in barter, whether it be groceries or whatnot, an exchange for his services. So someone had given him a couple of books, and he thought I'd be interested in it. And one of them was titled "The Occult Technology of Power." And in the bibliography, pretty extensive bibliography, I went through it, started getting some of the books, dealing with all kinds of subjects, history, politics, economics, and I began to seek to identify alternative sources of information, to see what was out there, things that I wasn't finding or weren't available in your local public library, even your school libraries, college libraries. And so I put every nickel and dime that came into the research, gathering material from all over the world, books, reports, videos, audios, you name it, on all kinds of subjects, politics, economics, psychology, history, religion, metaphysics. I wanted to get an overview of what was really going on here, so I could understand, and then take the training that has gone through over the years and produce summary information that would be helpful to other people who didn't have the time or the inclination to do the research themselves. And so that's how the Mind Control in America audio series came about. The first audio, Mind Control in America, that's its title, and it is a summary of the mind control issue. It describes the principles involved, and we'll discuss that. We'll get into how this works. Also, it describes the different techniques used, and we'll also talk about that. I give examples for the listener to hear, so that the listener has that as a frame of reference to be able to recognize these techniques when they observe them being used. And I also use the techniques that I talk about, again, for the listener to have that as a frame of reference to be able to recognize it. It's a lot different reading something about programming and how repetitive patterns induce trance state and guide one into the hypnotic state of mind. It's another thing to hear, listen, and experience for yourself as the information is being presented to you. So it's much more a powerful means of sharing information and educating people to have that extra sensory input available. And so the Mind Control in America audio was followed, also puts the issue into historical perspective. It ends with placing it into spiritual perspective. And then that was followed by an audio called Wake Up America, also about mind control, but as it applies to money and economics. The idea is that psychological warfare and economic warfare work together. They are being waged against America, have been for a long time, not only against America, but this is a global issue. The mind control issue is a global issue. It affects everybody, whether they are consciously aware of it or not. It's a part of our social environment. In fact, one of the problems is that we are living in a controlled environment, a virtual reality, where very few people realize the extent to which we are manipulated and controlled by unseen forces. In fact, I'd say that our society is the most manipulated and controlled society in history because of the programming and conditioning we all undergo through the mass media and public education. I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with George Orwell's book, 1984, in which he warned that people were in danger of losing their freedom of mind without being aware of it while it was happening because of psychological, emotional, and intellectual manipulation. In other words, mind control. Well, the world of 1984 arrived unnoticed in America and elsewhere because people were conditioned not to notice. And most people don't pay attention, conscious attention, to the things that affect them subconsciously because they don't generally know what to look for until and unless it's pointed out, and then it can be seen and recognized and understood for what it is. And so that's how I got involved in this. Initially, it began as a personal quest for understanding, something that we're all here to do. Insofar as solving the riddles of life, they're there for us to give our attention to them and to solve them, and they are solvable. And the mind control issue is not a new issue. It's something that mankind has suffered with for a very long time. The principles of mind control and hypnotic suggestion, hypnotic programming, they're ancient. There are references to hypnosis in ancient Egyptian texts and sacred writings of the East. And so it's a difference, though, in the times in which we live, is the technology that allows for the implementation of these ancient principles on a massive scale to influence the thinking and behavior of large numbers of people. Now that is a major factor and has a lot to do with many of the things that are happening in the world and many of the things that we experience. We were born into a system of lies and deception that people have become accustomed to as being a normal state of affairs, and that this is the way things have always been, and it's not questioned. Most people don't question the things that they believe or why they believe. It's very often it's taken for granted, and until someone comes around and points things out to them that this isn't necessarily so, that it's not necessarily a healthy condition. Now, something about the programming, as we come to understand more about how it works. In fact, it's the most effective way to protect ourselves and our loved ones from subconscious manipulations, being aware of how it works. Fundamentally, it's like the conscious, whatever the conscious mind believes, the subconscious acts on it. It's just like programming a computer. Put information into a computer and the computer acts on it. However, if the information you feed into the computer is wrong, it still acts on it. And so if a person believes something that is not true, the memory banks of the subconscious mind do not correct the error, but they act on it. So we have a lot of conditioning and programming that we've accumulated throughout our life, from childhood, and our parents have suffered from the same thing. It's generational. It's perpetuated from one generation to another. Their parents suffered from the same thing. The conditioning and programming that we all undergo through our socialization, through public education, through organized religion, and it has brought us to now where there's a lot of confusion, and a lot of people very unhappy and stressed, a lot of anxiety, and a loss of purpose, a loss of direction. And and the loss of clarity is insofar as clarity about our purpose for being here, and what is it? What's the purpose? Why are we here? What purpose is being served? So the mind control issue for me, I see it as an umbrella issue. That everything else comes under it and is affected by it. And the ultimate control is to control people without their conscious awareness. And as we bring into conscious awareness how this has come about and how it is sustained, then it will begin to dissipate and fall away. And it is the only means by which a small minority is able to control, manipulate, and govern the masses. And it can only be done through deception and through illusion, and this has been going on for a very, very long time. And the information is out there to help people understand what the situation is, and when you understand what your situation is, then you can begin to do something about it and improve your lot simply through the realization of and understanding of what is actually taking place. So that's kind of a summary of how I got involved and why, and it's serves as a point of departure for us to explore the issue of mind control. Again, our guest for today's program, Stephen Jacobson. Please check the website, mindcontrolinamerica.com. It's linked right here in the description for the program. Just click his name. It'll take you right to his website, and you can pick up his audio CDs and learn more about his work. And we're going to be giving out information on how you can get all of his audio CDs during the broadcast here, so stay tuned. I guess for folks who are listening in, when I was preparing for the program, and you just said causing confusion, the only way that a small number of people can dominate a vast number of people is through deception. And when I was preparing for the program, I noted that in your writings, you said that freedom of the mind is the first freedom from which all others are derived. For, I guess, people who are listening to the program who think mind control and think, I can think what I want. Nobody, is controlling what I think about or how I think about things. Can you kind of, I guess, start us off with giving us an explanation for what you mean when you say mind control? Oh, gee, the mind control issue covers a very wide gamut. From on one end of the spectrum, you have very basic, fundamental control and manipulation of information. So if we don't have all the information that we need on any given topic, then our judgment is only as good as the quality of our information. And if there are big gaping holes in that information, then that's going to be reflected in our understanding of anything and everything. So that's and that control exists and has for a good while. Back in so you couldn't have effective propaganda without the mass media. And the control of the mass media allows for the coordination of propaganda. Back in 1983, there was a book written by Ben Bedikian, who was the former national editor of the Washington Post and dean of the Graduate School of Journalism at the University of California at Berkeley. And his book, it was titled Media Monopoly. First edition came out in 1983. At that time, 50 corporations controlled most of America's media. When the second edition came out, 5 years later in 1988, that number shrank to 29. In 1990, that was the third edition, it was 26. Today, we're talking about 5 or 6 multinational corporations that are controlling the information and entertainment choices that we have available. So with that consolidation of ownership of press, publishing, radio, TV, film, in the hands of fewer and fewer people allows for coordinating the propaganda. And this trend towards consolidation of ownership is not something that just has affected the media and communications industry. That's been the trend in all areas of commerce and business. Is the big corporations carving up smaller businesses, family-owned businesses, where everything is being being siphoned into control in the hands of fewer and fewer people. Now, each nation has a ruling class, a moneyed class, a ruling elite. And and that's what allows for coordination or a consistency in politics of a country from one administration to the next. Doesn't matter what political party may be in control. The direction the country goes in is pretty much the same, and that's because we don't have a real two-party system in this country. We have really a one-party system with two factions that are like two sides of the same coin. What's happened is that money, private wealth, historically, government has been the handmaiden of private wealth and catering to private wealth. That's the rising of this ruling class that has sustained itself from one generation to the next, and the families turning over power to the children, so to maintain the control within this group of families. Well, government is controlled by families. These families have, on a global scale, have formed an alliance among themselves for the control and domination of the planet. Now, they fight amongst themselves about who's going to be king of the hill, but they are in unison and agreement in their goals, and that is control of all natural resources on the planet, including human resources, us, because we perform labor. And that's worth something. It's valuable, and because that's how it's through the labor of the masses that the small ruling class is able to live in imperial splendor. A situation that they want to maintain for indefinitely, and so they don't want to give. They're not going to give up control. Certainly not without a fight, because they want it all. And so that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're contending with. And so all advances in science are used against us to further the hold and control that the majority of the population is under. Now I mentioned the mindful issue covers a wide gamut, from control of information, very fundamental, manipulation of mental states. And to give you an example, the best example of that is certainly television. Alters people's state of awareness. The first order of business for a propagandist or an advertiser is to create the circumstances that will induce a state of mind that is favorable to the reception of their message. That state of mind happens to be the hypnotic state of mind. So that's what makes it so important to understand what it is and how it comes about, because when we're in that state of mind, we are more susceptible and vulnerable to manipulation than at any other time. We're open, wide open for mental programming. And so that's the first order of business, to induce the hypnotic state of mind. And it's a very natural state of mind. We go in and out of it throughout the day without even recognizing it. It's a twilight state of mind, like just waking up in the morning or drifting off to sleep at night. There's no mental activity going on. And that's why it's important, because information, the message, can be delivered directly to the subconscious without any interference. If we have the opportunity to analyze the information we're being presented with, then we have the opportunity and choice to decide for ourselves whether we're going to accept it as true or not. And that is the last thing that an advertiser or a propagandist wants to happen, and that is us thinking about their message. They want us to accept the message unequivocally and not even think about it. Just do as you're told and obey the message. And so they don't want a population of thinkers, critical thinkers. They want a sleeping population, which they have been very successful at creating. So that state of mind is very important. At the other end of the spectrum on the mind control issue is the more exotic government, military intelligence operations, and some of the more horrendous aspects of mind control issue of programming individuals, splitting or fracturing their consciousness, and programming, literally splitting personality and programming individual alters of that individual personality for particular tasks, whether it be for assassination, as drug couriers or information couriers, and that's the more extreme element of the mind control issue. But mind control is something that affects all of us because of the impact that popular culture and mass media has on us. Many people, especially young people, accept unquestioningly the reality that is presented by the media, popular culture, movies, television, the music. All these information outlets carry messages about how society works and how people should behave. So entertainment is not value-free. It has ideological content, and it presents a worldview that influences those who are watching the programming. And so entertainment, it's not just entertainment. It's propaganda, all of it. And the issue is whether it's what's the intent of that propaganda. Is it meant for good? Is it meant for the upliftment of the population, or is it meant to deceive, to have people believe things that things that are not true? So, but it's all programming. It's all conditioning, mental conditioning, creating an environment for us in which we are living, having our existence. But the arts are the most important delivery system for propaganda, and it goes unnoticed because people think, well, it's movies, TV. How important is that in the scheme of things? And don't understand what's happening and how it's being used. Storytelling is the oldest means of transmitting information about how society works and what's right and wrong. There's not much difference between primitive man sitting fixated in front of the flickering light of a campfire, telling stories about how things work, what's right and wrong, how society works, what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior. There's not much difference between that and modern man sitting fixated in front of the flickering light of a television, doing the same thing, watching stories, providing information, doing exactly the same thing. Now, television is by far the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. And that is so important, I'll say it again. It bears repeating. Television is by far the most important and powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. And yet, most people don't even give it a thought that could be. Most people think of television, don't think of television as a weapon. They think of it as a member of the family. For many people, yes. For many people, it's a primary source of news, information, entertainment. After a hard day's work, people come home tired. They plop themselves down on the sofa or their favorite easy chair, reach for the remote control, turn the TV on, and the mind off. And that's what's important about the TV, because it's doing that. Think back to a time when you have observed young children or older adults watching television, notice the expression on their faces. They have a far away, vacant look in their eyes. And that is because they are in a hypnotic trance. Now, the TV, it doesn't matter what you're watching, what the program is, it's the nature of the technology, it induces the hypnotic state of mind. That's what made it so important when it came on the forefront. Why American industry and advertisers were so thrilled and interested in this, and why government was interested in this. Because even before the advent of television, the principles of hypnosis were known and used on radio. And even before radio, they were used in public speaking. As a means of programming and getting people to think and behave in certain ways. So the TV, the way it happens, is the principles of a hypnotic program are really simple, very basic. The objective is to focus the attention of the mind on one or more of the five senses. In the case of the media, and a hypnotist will use his voice as, in a particular way, a sing-song kind of pattern of speaking to get a subject to lock onto the sound of the voice. And in doing so, clear the mind of all thought. In any repetitive pattern, sound pattern or visual pattern is going to do that. So the goal is to stop thinking. Stop thinking so that the message can go be programmed directly to the subconscious. Now, in the case of television, we don't see it consciously, but the image, the TV picture flickers. And if you've ever seen, in some of the old movies, black and white movies, they may have had a TV on in the background, and if they haven't compensated for the flicker effect, you see the black roll balls going up and down. Sometimes if you're traveling at dusk in a residential neighborhood, you might be able to see or notice the flickering of television in people's living rooms or whatever room the TV may be. The image flickers. We don't see it because it's happening pretty quickly, and but that is what's inducing the trance state. Now, there are different techniques that are used to deepen that trance. For example, television commercials, flashing words, flashing numbers, any repetitive patterns, graphics, moving graphics that are meant to capture the attention of the eyes, get the eye to focus on the repetitive pattern, to keep the mind occupied so that there's no mental activity going on, no thinking going on. So that's the first objective, to create that state, and then comes the repetition of the message, the programming. And so that's many things that people believe, not only don't they question it, but very often, if information is coming from a trusted source, comes from a respected authority, people can be led to believe something that's not true when the information is carefully timed and presented by an accepted and respected authority and repeated over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes a conditioned response. And that's the purpose of programming. It's to build into the subject, into the target population, a conditioned response so that we respond automatically without thinking, with a preference for a particular idea or preference for a particular product, and we think that it's as a result of our own choices, but they're not necessarily so. That some of our thoughts are not necessarily our own. And I know that's a very unsettling concept, a very unsettling idea, a very unsettling notion to even contemplate, but it is a fact of life. that, and in fact, the more educated one is, the more susceptible they are to programming and manipulation.
Wow.
But the reason for that is that highly educated people are great repositories of second-hand information, more so than someone who hasn't gone through higher education. And the factor of pride and ego, that people who are highly educated often feel that they are above the effects of the influence of propaganda, and making them even more so susceptible and under its influence because of that attitude.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, you can.
You said that was startling for me. You said people who are more educated are more susceptible to this sort of mind control, and you said they are repositories of secondhand information. Can you explain that a little more, please?
Sure, because in education, much of what is being the bulk of the information is you're getting it from another source, a secondhand source. So, and again, your academic success is determined by your giving back what you receive. And so, the more education someone has gone through, the more their minds are filled with that, rather than their own observations and their own realizations. It's secondhand.
Wow. Okay. So as opposed to people being, I guess, assisted in being able to think for themselves and sharpening their own ability to scrutinize and think critically, it's just more about regurgitating what someone else said.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And a key component of that also, you said, is pride and ego, where I've got so many degrees and, look at all my certificates on the wall. I'm informed. There's no way I could be, there's no way someone's controlling what I think.
Sure. Yeah. So pride's not such a good thing. You can't teach someone who's prideful and thinks, who's all puffed up with what they think they know. Only one who is humble and sincere in wanting to understand are teachable.
Wow. Again, our guest for today's program, Stephen Jacobson. Please check his website. It's right in the description. You can be lazy. Just click his name and it'll take you right there. If not, mindcontrolinamerica.com. Please check the website. My next question I wanted to ask is, just with television alone, when I was doing research for the program today, I saw where there was a study that said that, at least in this area of the world, the United States, that on average, most homes have more televisions than actual people, which I thought was, whoa. And I'll say it a third time, you said television is the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. I just wanted to ask, it almost seems frightening, how pervasive is mind control in America and I guess in the world? But before I get to that question, can you share with folks how they can get your material if they want to get the audio discs online?
Sure. Well, they can order online going to my website, www.mindcontrolinamerica.com. And that will give information about the audios and their contents, Mind Control in America and Wake Up America. They can order online, and also there's the mailing address for mail order, for sending in a check or money order, and ordering that way. I also offer my father's audio, the personal comfort training audio, as part of the package, so that people can order one or any combination of the three audios, because it represents a deprogramming package, where the Mind Control in America is an overview of the mind control issue and psychological warfare. The Wake Up America audio, also about mind control, but as it applies to money and economics, and again, the idea is that psychological warfare and economic warfare work together in a kind of a twin pincer kind of movement to apply pressure to the population so that people can't think clearly and don't know if they're coming or going. When people are confused and uptight and stressed out, then they're more susceptible to manipulation, and it's to understand that and how it works, and then the personal comfort training to help in relaxing after one has gotten upset, perhaps by some of the other information about what's going on. Then the personal comfort training can help calm one, and also the verbal content of the personal comfort training is designed to dissipate and dissolve negative programming that has been accumulated over the years. So used on a regular basis, the more its effect is cumulative. So it can assist in dislodging and one's conditioning and programming, and replace it with a positive health-based program for eliciting the aid of the subconscious to clean out the negative conditioning and programming and replace it with a positive health-based program. And again, going to the website, either order online with a credit card or through the mail. The audio is available on CDs or on audio cassettes for those people who still have audio cassettes. Many probably don't even know what an audio cassette is. It wasn't that long ago, but yes, I used to use them, and I kind of like them because you can some things you can do with the audio tape that you can't do with the CD.
For sure.
But that's how people can get the information. Now, I am working on the next audio. The first two, the Mind Control in America and Wake Up America, audios are the results of more than 10 years' work. And my dad's audio personal comfort training is the result of 11 years' work. So I wasn't interested in churning out a whole quantity of audios, just what was needed to give people clear information. And these audios are tightly scripted with music and sound effects so that they're interesting to listen to as well, and intended to be listened to more than once. There's a lot of information there, and in addition to that, because I use the techniques that I talk about, very often people will listen to it to see what it is I'm doing. And how I'm doing it. And from time to time, I'm certainly available to answer questions. Any people who write or email me with questions, I'm happy to oblige. And on occasion, some people have asked me about what it is I did in a particular place in the audio, and I explain it. But as an illustration for educational purposes, that it's meant to be an aid in being able to recognize these things when people are confronted with them and know exactly what it is and be able to pull away from it. Now that's part of it. Part of dealing with the issue is education about what it is and how it works. But because it works on us in such a, because it plugs into our nervous system, literally. The mass media plugs into our nervous system. Television literally plugs into our nervous system. And I'll give you a couple examples to illustrate this. Back in 1997, you may recall this. It happened in Japan. 700 children had to be hospitalized in response to watching a TV cartoon. It was a Pokemon episode, which was very popular here in the States. In this particular episode, strobing flashes of light pulsated from the eyes of one of the cartoon characters. And it was the strobe effect that caused epileptic-like seizures in some of the children who were watching the program. And it caused spasms and nausea in other children. And all in all, more than 700 children had to be hospitalized. And this was reported all over the world. And interestingly enough, USA Today, our national newspaper, one of them, reported the event, and here's the headline they had. U.S. kids safe from cartoon seizures. And the story went on to say, parents need not worry. American children aren't likely to suffer seizures provoked by TV cartoons. Now what they were really saying, what the USA Today newspaper was really saying with the headline in the story was, America, go back to sleep. Everything is all right. Don't think, just go back to sleep. Sleep. That's what they were saying. They didn't want people to pick up on it. And they didn't. Another illustration of this plug-in effect, how it literally plugs into a nervous system. Prior to television, who heard of attention deficit disorder, ADD? When a child can sit motionless, fixated, watching the TV. When the TV is off, they have this nervous energy can't focus their attention. And what is happening is that the TV causes an electronic fix. The cutting patterns that were developed in TV commercials, music videos, cutting quickly from one scene to the next, extreme camera angles, fast cutting techniques. Whenever there's a cut, there's a corresponding chemical electrical response in the brain. And what happens is that endorphins are released that have a drug-like effect on the nervous system. So what the child is doing when they can't focus their attention and sit still when the TV is off, they're looking for that fix that they got from the TV.
Wow. I'm sure it's... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, again, it's an illustration of how it's literally plugging into our nervous system. So it's like almost like one step away from becoming cyborgs and one of the Borg.
Wow.
Resistance is futile.
Wow.
So they want us to believe.
Wow. I'm sure. Again, we'll make it number 4. Television, the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. I am certain with all of the new technology and high-definition TV and now the television is, 60 feet tall, I'm sure that just makes it even more deadly for people who are not really paying attention and scrutinizing what they and the video games as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And talking about, the government got involved in the high-definition TV, and there was a deadline to go from the old analog to the digital. Now, do you really think government cares about us seeing with greater clarity crappy TV programs? I don't think so. I don't think that was the issue. And no, it wasn't the issue. There are a number of reasons why they wanted to go that way, but it certainly wasn't for our benefit. Who has to worry about Big Brother watching us when everybody's watching Big Brother on that tube?
Wow.
And now here's something else to ponder, and about the tube, the news broadcast, the hypnotic techniques that are used in news broadcasting. Now, if you think about it, think about the way newscasters speak, and you realize they all talk the same way, regardless of their ethnic background. Doesn't matter if they're black, white, Hispanic, Oriental. With few exceptions, they all sound alike. The patterned speech of a newscaster is similar to that of a hypnotist. The eye contact made with the viewer The news broadcaster is looking directly into the camera, into the eyes of the viewer. That's a hypnotic technique. The newscaster is an authority figure, encouraging acceptance of the message. Newscaster is an accepted and respected authority figure, and so meant to encourage people to accept the information as true and accurate. In fact, we as a nation have been conditioned and programmed to accept the format of the news broadcast as the means by which we receive true, accurate information. And we were already conditioned and programmed for this in the days of radio, even before the advent of television. It's only been fine-tuned, and we've had plenty of time to be for a number of generations to be conditioned and programmed by this format. But I'm sure many of your listeners have heard about the famous radio broadcast of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds that Orson Welles did on October 30th, 1938, on Halloween Eve, where thousands of people fled from a crisis that had no existence except in their imagination. People thought that New Jersey was being invaded by Martians. They actually believed it. And it caused panic in different parts of the country. Some people died as a result of it.
Wow.
And what did it is that the dramatization of War of the Worlds was done as a news broadcast, with Orson Welles playing the lead newscaster. They had outside experts coming in to comment on what was happening out in the field. And so it was done, in spite of the fact that they had disclaimers at the beginning and during the program. People didn't pay attention to that. It was the format that they were conditioned to.
Wow.
Now, when it was all done, naturally, people were upset about it. And it was done again. In 1949, in Ecuador, a broadcast of a dramatization of War of the Worlds. It caused greater panic there than it did here. But when people found out that it was fake, they went and burned the radio station down.
Wow. 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 I'm pitching this. I'm pretty certain this is going to be the second time I get to mention one of my favorite authors. By chance, are you familiar with Neil Postman?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
educate me.
He wrote. He's passed away now, but he wrote several books. Very, very attentive to language and the way words are used, and how a failure to be precise with words can generate a lot of confusion.
Oh, yes.
Which I have a great respect for. That's why he's one of my favorite authors. He also wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and he really did not like television. And he had a whole chapter of his book where he talked about how news programs on television represent television at its worst for a variety of reasons, some of which you've mentioned. But he talked about how the news is set up to make people believe you're getting all this accurate information, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
With the news, I thought you would be familiar, but yeah, Neil Postman, excellent. I would encourage everyone listening, check that book out as well, Amusing Ourselves to Death. But yeah, he really hammered news broadcasts. I don't think he picked up on what you picked on about the similarity and how people talk. Regardless of who it is, they all sound the same, but he definitely picked up on how you get these little snippets of information with no context. You get 30 seconds of whatever gibberish they tell you about what's happening in, this is what's going on in Iraq, and you think you're informed, and it's like, well, wait a minute, have you read any books on secondhand information? Just the source is never checked. It's like, this is crazy. Like, he would prefer to watch any trash on television except the news. That really is television at its worst when they're giving you the news.
For sure. Look at the history of television news. It is an extension of the old newsreels that were played in movie theaters before the days of television. Now, those newsreels, like the March of Time and Pathé News, had a horrendous reputation for tampering with so-called news events. The practice of faking scenes was rampant. Even faking scenes of celebrities by employing impersonators was frequently used. Not only celebrities but political figures, and then passing this off as news. There's one instance, one example I recall of during the Mexican Revolution in 1914, the newsreel companies made arrangements with Pancho Villa to fight his battles in daylight and to wait until the cameras were in place before attacking. So, how different is that from what happened from the news coverage of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, even what's going on in Iraq? Back in during the first Gulf War, TV Guide had an issue with on the cover they had a headline that said "Fake News." A special report. What we see isn't always news, it's public relations. This was with reference to the public relations firm of Hill and Knowlton that stage managed much of the effort to rally public support for the First Persian Gulf War. There was a testimony given reportedly by an anonymous Kuwaiti refugee girl who told of Iraqi soldiers storming hospitals and tossing newborn babies from their incubators out and killing them. The whole thing turned out to be a fabrication, and the girl turned out to have been the daughter of Kuwait's ambassador to the United States.
Wow. Wow.
Remember, the technology has gotten to the point where you've heard a picture is worth 1,000 words. But with computer technology and computer graphics, and it may be worth 1,000 words, but it can also encourage people to believe things that aren't true. The movie Forrest Gump, where Tom Hanks is the main character, he interacts with people from news footage, and it looks real.
Right.
And that's not the only movie that's used these kinds of techniques. So seeing, you can't count on seeing is believing, because for someone to say, "Oh, it has to be true, I saw it on television," well, that doesn't mean that it's true. It could all be staged.
Wow.
And there's some people who contend that the moon landing was staged, and that it was really Arizona and not really the moon. Where the pictures were taken.
Wow. Wow.
But it just shows how susceptible we are to manipulation, that it has been done, it can be done, and so reality has to make us question what is reality, what's real.
Question everything. I hope folks listening in question everything. Soon as we have all this technology, you have all this research that mind control is happening. It's being conducted. It's being conducted worldwide, not just this area of the world. And the technology to carry out this psychological warfare, this brainwashing, has gotten better and better. Exactly who is doing this? Who's behind this, and what is their objective?
Well, it's this ruling elite, this ruling class, this moneyed class that is some people have identified them as the Illuminati. Some say it's the hierarchy of Freemasonry. Many secret societies, ancient secret societies. This is something. This war for control over the planet has been going on, and for the minds of mankind has been going on for a long time. So we're talking about families. Some scholars and researchers have identified something on the order of 300 families worldwide that are working together in concert, and with, some of the names you'd recognize, some not. But yeah, it's old money. And the banking establishment, and the families that run the banking establishment. When you mentioned the author about, what was the gentleman's name? Postman?
Neil Postman.
Neil Postman. And the problem of language, and which made me think of what George Orwell had warned about newspeak and doublethink and the manipulation of language that, in effect, the essence of psychological warfare is to confuse the meaning of words and infiltrate the mind with conflicting concepts. A couple of illustrations of what that means, and this will be clear. Most people have heard of the Federal Reserve System, and the Federal Reserve came into prominence in the news with the economic crisis and their attempts to fix a broken system. It wasn't emphasized the part they played in breaking the system and manipulating the system, but be that as it may, most people think, or most of the population thinks that the Federal Reserve is part of the U.S. government because of the word federal. But that isn't so. It's not true. It's not part of the government. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation owned and operated by foreign and domestic banks and operated for profit. So it's a business. It's no more part of the government than Federal Express or Federal Laundry. But the name was selected intentionally to deceive the public to think that the Federal Reserve was part of the U.S. government. And they're in control of the money system. Whoever controls the money system controls everything. And whoever's controlling them, the members of the Federal Reserve, are manipulating not only the purchasing power of those pieces of paper that we carry and incorrectly label as money, and it's not. It's a money substitute. And there's a difference between a money substitute and real money, and there's a whole history behind that. And the Wake Up America audio is about all that, how that came about, and what the problem is, and what the fundamental economic problem is, and that is the confusion that people have, and ignorance people have regarding money and the money system. Now, going back, another example about language. I already mentioned the Federal Reserve. The word dollar. A dollar is not money. A dollar is a unit of measurement, like a quart or an inch or a mile is a unit of measurement. A dollar is a unit of measurement for gold or silver coin. But in people's minds, a dollar is money. At one time, and this goes back, how this happened, this goes back to ancient times, and it got kind of perfected during the Middle Ages, where people would bring their valuables, their gold and silver, to the goldsmith. And he had a big vault. And they'd pay a fee to store their valuables in the vault, and they'd be issued a receipt, a warehouse receipt. Well, that warehouse receipt, over a period of time, because out of convenience, people began to exchange those warehouse receipts as if it were the real money. The real money was the gold and silver. But the money substitute, the receipt, was easier to carry and to handle. It didn't weigh much and as much as the real thing. And so that's the precursor, the beginnings of the check and checkbook money, and of our paper currency, that warehouse receipt. All fine and good so long as you have someone honest writing out the receipts and holding the valuables in the vault. But what happened was that the goldsmiths saw an opportunity here to the dishonest goldsmiths saw an opportunity to increase their wealth by issuing more receipts than gold and silver on deposit in the vault. So in effect, what they were doing, they were stealing from the whole community without anybody knowing it, unless everybody came in at one time to reclaim their valuables, with their warehouse receipt, and that wasn't happening. But occasionally it did happen, and as a result, the goldsmiths would get hung when it was discovered what they were doing. But until that time happened, they were able to buy, increase their spending and buy their wives or their girlfriends, whatever they wanted to get them. But as a result, they were stealing. Now that is the beginnings of a fractional reserve banking system that we got today. It's issuing more receipts for wealth on deposit than you get in the vault. Now, at one time, the Federal Reserve note, those pieces of paper that we foolishly call money, that's in our pockets, and the billfolds and purses, it had a contract on it. It was redeemable in lawful money at the U.S. Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. Lawful money at one time was defined as gold and silver coin. So it was clear that the currency was a receipt for gold or silver coin, and you could take it and get it redeemed. But what happened is that the system, they had so overloaded the system with these pieces of paper, and they couldn't, and if there was a run, as at one time there was, on the banks, they had to shut down the banks, and during FDR's tenure, and reorganize because their scheme was on the verge of being discovered, what they were doing, and that was stealing from everybody. So and they got us off that system, because our currency no longer says that it's redeemable on lawful money. And that happened when Kennedy was assassinated. During the funeral, that period of time when the nation's attention was focused on that tragedy, the Federal Reserve switched the currency. They took out the notes with the contract, the redemption clause, that the money said the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand X number of dollars. If you had a $20 bill, it said it will pay you $20, which meant that piece of paper wasn't $20, but you could go and use that receipt and get real $20, $20 of weight of gold or silver coin. Well, that disappeared. The money, that contract disappeared, so that the piece of paper, instead of saying we'll pay to the bearer on demand $20, it became $20 overnight. And because it looked so similar, nobody noticed.
Wow.
So it just reminded me, because of the issue of language and how imprecise we are. We can speak the same language, but how much actual communication is occurring out here. There's so much misunderstanding and confusion. People, it's like you may have experienced this. I've experienced it from time to time, and many of your listeners, I would say, have experienced this. You can be talking to somebody and feel that you have you're communicating. There's an understanding there, and then something will be said, and then it will trigger. Well, they don't know what I'm saying, or it's like the communication is not as clear as you thought it was, and just as an indication that we may be using the same words, but the definitions and the meaning that we attribute to the words is so often different that it's amazing that any communicating can get done at all, that we can communicate with one another. And that's not by accident. This is exactly what George Orwell was talking about with this, the creation of words by the advertising industry, by popular culture, new words, and giving old words new meaning. It's amazing. It's one way of disenfranchising, dislocating one generation from the next to cause a separation between young and old, so that certain ideas cannot be communicated effectively.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard anyone articulate that. Just by taking old words and giving them new meanings, new definitions, you can cause a dislocation, a miscommunication between one generation and another generation.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
So we got a lot happening here, and it's like well, we're talking about money and the word dollar. That it's like, you know, a dollar can't be money any more than a quart can be milk. A unit of measurement can't replace or become the thing that it measures. But that's exactly what happens as far as the money system is concerned. And that's what George Orwell called doublethink, and that's what the Bible calls being double-minded.
Wow. Again, our guest for today's program, Stephen Jacobson. Please check the website, mindcontrolinamerica.com. mindcontrolinamerica.com. We have quite a few folks. They called in. Are you okay taking some questions from callers?
Oh, sure.
Oh, groovy. Before I do that, I do want to give another opportunity if you could share how people could get your audio CDs.
Yes, absolutely, because that's the whole program as far as what's going on is laid out on the audios. The website is mindcontrolinamerica.com, www.mindcontrolinamerica.com. The audio is Mind Control in America and Wake Up America, and my father's audio personal comfort training. They can be ordered online with a credit card, or there's an address and an order form you can print out, or just write it out and send it to the address on the website to order either the compact discs, the CDs, or as audio cassettes. That's mindcontrolinamerica.com.
Outstanding. And again, it's linked right in the description. You can just click Stephen Jacobson, take you right to the website, and you can see all his material and hopefully get it. Very informative. Before I do go to the phone lines, I did want to ask, I ask this of everyone on the program, so I want to make sure I cover my bases. I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I suspect a lot of this mind control that's going on, people who believe in and practice racism, white supremacy are behind that. The definition, you talked about definition, the definition that I use for both racism and white supremacy is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that definition is accurate?
It's a pretty all-encompassing definition. Yes, it does exist, and it's something that we all suffer from. And both black, white, Oriental, Indian, regardless, as humans, we suffer as a result of it. But it points out something, an even deeper problem that it is foundational, and that is the mind control issue is first and foremost a spiritual issue. The mind is the gateway to the soul. That's why there's a mind control issue. The we're first and foremost we're spiritual beings who find ourselves imprisoned in a physical body that's imprisoned in a material world. It's not a natural situation for us. And it's kind of like a fish trying to live on dry land. It's incompatible. It doesn't cause for a very pleasant existence. The fundamental problem or issue for mankind is misidentifying ourselves as the physical body, or as the mind, or as this body-mind configuration, which is not who we actually are. That is the result of our programming, our conditioning, which makes up our so-called personality, our individuality, who we think we are. But we're not who we think we are, because that's not who we are. Who we really are, and what we really are, is the issue. And that's something that each and every one of us at one point or another is going to have to come to terms with and deal with. And these are the real important issues. And that is two questions. Who am I? And what am I? And they're connected. Who am I and what am I? A wise sage from India, Ramana Maharshi, made a comment. He got it in 1950. He made the statement that, what do you know if you know everything there is to know about everything, but you don't know the one who knows? What do you really know? You don't know anything. You're ignorant. In spite of knowing, if you know everything there is to know on every subject, but you don't know the one who knows, then what use is any of it? The issue is to discover for yourself, who am I? When you come into a realization of what that means, where that takes you, the real I, not the I that you call yourself. See, we all use that phrase. We all call ourselves I, and that should be a hint of a commonality, a bond, a unifying factor for all of us, regardless of the circumstances into which we were born, regardless of the economic circumstances, regardless of our culture, regardless of a particular race and nationality. It's regardless of that, because that has to do more with it's part of our identity, yes, but it has more to do with our conditioned and programmed identity. It's not who we really are. Who we really are is spirit. And the mystical traditions of all religions, the esoteric, sects of all religions, the statement is made that all that exists is God. God is all there is. So where does that leave us? If God is all there is, who are we? Who am I? We're all using the word I to refer to ourselves. I, me, my, mine. All of us, regardless of our language, there's a word for that, but we're all using the same thing. That should be a hint that the essence, that is the true us, is there's commonality there. That God is playing all the parts as us.
Wow. Again, our guest, pleasure to have him, Stephen Jacobson, author, Mind Control in America. Check out the audio discs at his website, Mind Control in America. Phone line is full. I'm going to hit the phone lines. For folks who I guess I have seen a photo of you, but for folks who haven't seen a picture of you, you are a white man, is that correct?
Yeah, that's the body, yeah. I don't have a mustache anymore, but that's what you'll see.
Right on. Let's see, I'm going to just go right down the line. If you called in, going right down the line, and please keep the background noise down so we can preserve the quality of the broadcast. Last four digits, 2127, last four digits 2127. Your line is open if you have a question for Stephen Jacobson. You're on live.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I want to be real brief. I know you got other callers. Yes, I think everything that gets said was on point, like with the elite, how the few control the many, and, if you have wealth, money, and resources, because we live in a capitalistic, materialistic society, people will follow and go off every word you say because of it. And once the rapper Biggie Smalls said something that go along with what you said about that, is like you can have a guy who have knowledge and he's broke, but no one don't want to listen to what he say. But you can have a dumb, ignorant fool who's talking, who have a legend kook, and he say, I bet you one person will agree with him just because of the kind of car he's driving, even though he don't know what he's talking about. And one more thing, when you talk about people who are educated, it made much sense, because it's a saying that the more educated you get, the more stupid you get. Because like in schools, they don't say nothing about critical thinking. I didn't hear that term until it was years later that I had been out of school. And so, other people have spoke on this, like John Taylor Gatto. And so the education system is, set up the way it is. It's not created to create geniuses who will solve the problems. It's just created to have more people who will generate, workers who will generate more wealth for the elite. And that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Good point that your caller makes there about education, because education was not set up to make us into critical thinkers. Education is doing exactly what it was set up to do. It's doing exactly what the government wants it to do. With all the money that gets poured into education, the government gets what it pays for. And it's doing what they want it to do. It's not creating thinkers.
What do they want it to do?
Oh, they want to create, they want to turn the young people into robotic, unthinking consumers who will do what they're told and who will fit in and do as it has been designed for them to fit in and do. It's meant to mold people into. Well, here's what John Stuart Mill said about education. He said, "A general state education is a mere contrivance for molding people to be exactly like one another. And as the mold in which it casts them is that which pleases the predominant power in the government, it establishes a despotism over the mind, leading by natural tendency to one over the body." So, in effect, what it means is that education of the young is used to condition them to what comes later, eliminating the difference between propaganda and education. You couldn't have effective propaganda without education as a conditioning process, softening up process. The mind is conditioned with vast amounts of information, posing as facts and knowledge, dispensed for ulterior motives.
Wow. The mind is running. I'm having to think a lot. I hope that happens every program, but I'm absorbing a lot of information today. Wow, I'm hitting the phone line, see if we got some more questions as well. Last four digits, 2009. Last four digits, 2009. Your line is open. If you have a question for Stephen Jacobson, go right ahead.
I would just want to say, Gus, you're doing a good job. I just jumped on here late. One question, I don't know if it was already asked, but for your guest, what does he think about the solution of ending racism and white supremacy? And how does he think it's going to be stopped?
The only solution to spiritual consciousness is the only solution to the problems and suffering of material existence. It has to be solved on that platform. We're not going to solve problems by Band-Aid measures, trying to fix this and that and tinker here and there and try to fix education and then try to fix any number of components that make up for our society. The problems are fundamental, and the fundamental issue is the problem for mankind is the misidentification of yourself with the body and the mind. And that's not who we are. And that's really the goal, the ultimate goal of psychological warfare is to prevent us from a spiritual awakening. It's not going to be successful because our evolution as being is going in that direction. That's why the chaos and the turmoil that we're experiencing, and that's why it's going to increase and increase and increase, because we're in a period of transition and transformation. We have to change. We have to change, and the outside world will reflect that change as a result. The statement or slogan that we've often heard is what we have to become the change that we wish to see in the world. But that is a fact. And that's where our power lies. We are made to feel powerless and that we don't have any control over our situation and control over ourselves and over our destiny, and that's not so. We have control over where we place our attention. We have control over what we are going to think once we learn how to think. And we have the control to decide that we're going to make our lives successful and count for something. And it has nothing to do with money. And that's the beauty of it, that to fulfill the purpose and objective of life does not require money. It requires a sincere desire to know the truth, the value of the truth, and to ultimately be the truth, to represent the truth in its purity. The truth be known is that our true identity is being, awareness, just being, without thinking, without the obstruction of thought. True understanding is beyond the mind. That's why we can't, the more we try to think ourselves out of a problem, very often the deeper we get mired into non-resolution of that problem, until we direct our attention elsewhere, and then something rises up within us, an insight, realization that gives us what we need at that moment. We have everything that we need already inside us. God lives inside each and every one of us, and is there for us, and is there to help and to guide, give guidance and direction. The ruling elite, the so-called hierarchy of the New World Order, who have turned this planet into a prison planet, into a hell for the majority of mankind in their attempts to create a material paradise for themselves. They're going to have to be accountable for the decisions that they've made and the choices that they've made. But God lives in them as well. Even in the meanest mortal, God lives. And for that reason, is sacred because of that fact. Doesn't mean that you don't seek to restrain people who are trying to do you harm, or trying to keep humanity from arriving at a spiritual awakening and understanding. And that is the greatest sin, the greatest harm, to seek to retard the spiritual growth and upliftment of another. And in this case, we're talking about mankind. The fight is over the planet and over us. But the outcome has already been determined. and that is what's happening here is for the benefit of everybody. And I mean everybody. That everybody has something to learn, and that we'll look back on this one day and wonder how did we ever get to this place where we were just so stupid and unthinking and just didn't know anything about anything of importance. How did that happen? But we'll come to that point, and that will be our past. It's on a spiritual platform, because that's where equality is.
Person who called in, last four digits, 4662, 4662. Your line is open. If you have a question, go right ahead.
Yes. Hello, Gus, and hello, Stephen Jacobson. I was reading your website, Mr. Jacobson, and it said that you had been in the film industry for 13 years, and that you didn't fully appreciate the extent to which, we're all being manipulated and controlled by mass media until, far into your career. I was wondering, given your experience in the industry, given your background and knowledge of this, how far up the chain, in terms of these types of organizations, or be it production companies or these corporations, how far up the chain with regard to film do you think you have to go till you find the people that are consciously aware of what they are doing? Like, how far up the chain, I guess, is the source of the manipulation consciously, if that makes any sense. It's a tricky question.
Oh, makes sense. It's because of the money that's involved, and it's so expensive and producing films, that it is a money-driven business for sure. But at the highest levels, and where you have the multinational banks that are putting up the money for these things, that at the highest level, we got to know. We got to know. I'll give you an example of why I think that. You may recall we really didn't get into the area of subliminal communication and the use of subliminal technology and messages in the media. It's part of our everyday life. We're constantly assaulted with messages that we're not consciously aware of seeing or hearing, but they're out there affecting us anyway. And it's used extensively in all media. An example, one of the many examples, but I'll give you an example from the movie that you may be familiar with, The Exorcist.
Yes.
Based on a book by William Peter Blatty, who was also the producer of the movie. Well, Mr. Blatty was also a CIA operative who served as the policy branch chief of the Psychological Warfare Division of the United States Air Force. And that movie used subliminal messages, pictures and sounds and words to heighten the emotional impact and effect that the movie had on the audience. And some people, as a result of seeing that movie, had nightmares and were affected in a negative way as a result of the movie. Many movies have used these techniques. The fact that William Peter Blatty, his background with the CIA and psychological warfare, and his producing a movie, a major motion picture by a major motion picture company, there has long been this relationship between Hollywood, New York, Washington. The media is the fourth branch of government. It's part of the government. During the war, the World War I and World War II, it was more, and the effort for war bonds and the celebrities that were in the forefront of that. There is that relationship between politics and the entertainment industry. And there's really, and only as an indicator of there not being that much difference between politics and entertainment. It's show business. It's all part of show business. It's a show. Even war is that way. The expression theater of war alludes to that. Because during the war, World War II, for example, there, what's his name, Standard Oil, the Rockefeller, they were doing business with Nazi Germany. George Bush's grandfather, Prescott Bush, was involved in with Averell Harriman, was involved in providing money, financing Hitler. The head of the Secret Service, his name was Max Wilberg, Jewish, interestingly enough. His brother, Paul Warburg, was instrumental in setting up the Federal Reserve System here in this country. So there's a connection there. Because of the importance of the entertainment industry creating a mindset in the population. Lenin, after the Russian Revolution, which was exported to Russia, it wasn't a homegrown revolution. It was financed by the West, by the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy. It wasn't a popular uprising. And in fact, most revolutions aren't, because it costs money and organization. And Lenin considered movies extremely important in politically in creating the mindset in the population. So that didn't go unnoticed here in this country or elsewhere in the industrialized world. No, it's entertainment is not just entertainment. The arts are extremely important. The primary delivery system for propaganda, and it had its origin in religion, because the arts and theater, music, dance comes out of religion. And they're used as a means of transmitting information from one generation to the next to teach truths to the younger generation. And it just shows how it's been abused. Instead of for the help and upliftment of mankind, it's all too often being used as a means to control and manipulate instead of free.
Wow. The person who called in last four digits, 5128, last four digits 5128. Your line is open. If you have a question, please go right ahead.
Yes, hi. I would like to know if your guest could speak to the fact that in television, there's not very many images of, I guess, positive images of non-white people. Has that been, I guess, in your experience as being 13 years in the industry, was there anything that you saw that, I guess, you could speak to concerning that?
Good question. I've left the film industry in 1980, so I had worked for 13 years up to that point. And and in fact, I threw away my TV in 2006, so that's a little more than 4 years ago. Occasionally, I'll see somebody else's TV from time to time to see what's happening, but no, it's been a while since when I kind of got educated, it wasn't necessary for me to watch TV anymore. But you make an accurate observation. What's interesting about there not being many or enough or representative positive images of non-white characters, in spite of the fact that the trend of population is that the white population is becoming a minority, and that eventually will become there is an amalgamation, a racial amalgamation occurring that will ultimately mean even a greater minority of the white population will become an even greater minority.
Let's see. Last four digits, 9902. 9902. I think that's Mr. Nero. If you have a question, go right ahead. Your line is open.
Yes, I do. Hotep. Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Sir, I really appreciate you coming on. Some of the things you said, really, my mouth was probably wide open when you talked about the role that people who have a greater level of education and how susceptible they are to mind control. I have several questions, but I just want to get this one question hopefully answered. What role does mind control play in sexuality? As far as, is it possible to for media to be used to compel someone to engage in so-called homosexual behavior?
Interesting question. Your listening audience has some very insightful questions, Gus, and very interesting. It has to affect younger people. That with presenting sexual roles as at one time there would not be a positive depiction of homosexual or lesbian individuals on TV, and that changed, and that would influence young people. Depending on what their proclivity was, tendencies were. If there was a tendency towards that, or a curiosity, or if they were questionable about their own sexuality, then that could certainly influence people. Whether it has to do with sex or race or whatever the topic, whatever is being presented, the point of view that is being presented in the story on television is going to have an influence on the people who are watching it. That's why the TV networks have programming departments. The music industry, they have programming departments. That's why. Because it's all programming and conditioning, and it does affect people. Yes.
Wow. Gus, may I ask one other question, please?
Help yourself, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobson, what do you mean by spiritual?
Our essence of that which is. What is spirit? How does one define spirit? Spirit is awareness. It is consciousness. All this that we see is the product of consciousness. We create our world, the external circumstances of our world, through thinking. Individual thinking and collective thinking. We have created the mess that's out here. We all bear some responsibility because we've participated in it in one way or another as a result of our thinking. And our sloppy thinking, for that matter, because it has not been impressed upon us that thinking is a thing. It creates. Our thinking creates. We create our world as a result of our thinking. Spirit, Holy Spirit, is holy because it's conscious, aware. That's our true being is just that beingness, awareness.
So if someone's... No, you may finish your thought, sir.
No, go ahead. I lost it.
I was just going to ask, if someone's thinking is retarded, can that person also still be spiritual?
Oh, that's how, yes, absolutely, because that is our true identity. We're spiritual beings, or being. Where the body is not who we are. That's what's caused the problem. And the mind is not who we are. We have a mind, we have a body, they're possessions, things to be used by us, but it's not who we are, and we've been led to think that we were born into this world, we have X number of years to live, and then we die. Well, who dies? What dies? See, life and death are not opposites. There's only life. Birth and death are opposites. The body is born into this world. The body dies. But we're not the body. Which means that we existed prior to the body and will exist after the body is gone. That's spirit. Spirit's eternal. We're eternal. But we got trapped somehow because of something that happened here. Trapped in the body and into materialistic kind of thinking, where we're sold a bill of goods that the purpose of life is to make money, to become successful materially, and get as much as you can, get the gusto while you get the chance, because you're not going to be here very long, and get everyone in this competitive mode, a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog kind of society, where instead of cooperating with one another and where we would have a totally different kind of civilization. We get a very low kind of civilization here.
Interesting.
The only solution is spiritual. Spiritual consciousness is the only solution. And see, organized religion is part of the problem, because the money system is corrupt. The money system, because it's corrupt and dishonest, it's contaminated everything else in society, all society's institutions, including organized religion. Because that's where spiritual training was supposed to be getting the training and the information that we need to come into this awareness of who and what we are, and to live on the basis of that inner guidance, where it's instead of having to have an intermediary intercessor to have to go to and ask what to do, and instead of being shown how to find within our own self that place where all the answers are for us. Because God is accessible to everybody. And all the great sages, all the religions and all the cultures, that's what they were teaching. And that's why they got into so much trouble with the religious establishment, because they were competition, because they made the religious establishment unnecessary.
Interesting. And just one last thing. This word spiritual, do you know how long that word has been used? I mean, is this a word that's been around for a long period of time, or is it something that kind of just came about the past 100 years or so?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
Okay.
I would think the word itself, I don't know. It'd be interesting to explore that, the word itself.
I wanted to check counter-racist evolving engineer. Creed, did you have a question? She might be just listening. Did you have a question, or are you just listening? Okay, I think she's just listening. Last caller, if you have a question before we wrap up the program, last caller, just called in at 111. Did you have a question? I can't see the number, so last person, the most recent person to call in, did you have a question? Not hearing. Oh, yep, not hearing you. Number showing up is 111. I don't know who it is, but if you have a question. Okay, maybe they're just listening too. Thoroughly enjoyed the information. Extremely constructive. Lots of folks have chatted in and said that they really appreciated the information. Could you share that? We'll make it third time to the charm. Could you share that information again on how they can pick up the audio?
Certainly. Just go to the website, mindcontrolinamerica.com, www.mindcontrolinamerica.com, and that's my website with information about myself, about the audios that are available, and the audios, how to order the audios either online or through the mail, and with the address and how much they are, and the combinations, whether one audio or two or all three of them. There are different packages and.
Outstanding. Thoroughly.
I want to thank you for inviting me to be with you and to talk to you and your listening audience. I have enjoyed it, and we are all in this thing together.
For sure. The pleasure was ours. Very grateful you could share some of your Thursday evening with us. Very informative. Hope folks listened closely and took notes. I was writing book titles down and everything. Very helpful information. I hope maybe we can get you back on the program again down the road, too, because we didn't even get to some of the stuff that you've done on ways that this mind control is carried out in a subliminal way. So perhaps we can get you back to cover more of your information.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Outstanding. Again, our guest, Stephen Jacobson, author of Mind Control in America, audio CDs and cassettes, if you still got a cassette player. Check the website, mindcontrolinamerica.com. A pleasure, very informative, and we will definitely be in touch with you soon, Stephen.
Very good. God bless.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, context of white supremacy, Gus T Renegade and Justice. I'm going to take a quick commercial break and wrap the program up and prepare for this weekend.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice. That's
counter-racism.com.
Gus T Renegade, context of white supremacy. Again, want to throw that quote out. Stephen Jacobson, I think he dropped several gems. Television, the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. In history. Particularly, as I said, I've heard statistics, black people spend more time watching television than anybody else. Just think about that. And if you all heard the program that Aisha Sekhmet, when she was here, and I asked her what, if she could think of some of the key differences to when she was more confused about racism, white supremacy, and when she became less confused, she said she watched a lot more television when she was confused about racism, white supremacy. I think one of her suggestions was to take a fast from TV. Definitely. And I thought this program, I told people in advance, I hope the audience is sophisticated enough to appreciate this. I think so. I think so, because a lot of people were listening live and called in. Thank you all for supporting. I hope it was constructive. Just some of the things that he said, if you just overlay what he said with what you know about racism, white supremacy, which he said existed, he said the ultimate control is to control people without their conscious awareness. Most of the non-white people are totally baffled about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. He said, you can condition people so that they can become accustomed to things. This is just the way it's always been. They don't ask any questions about it. They will just accept it. That is most non-white people. He even talked about parents. He said, this is generational. That is exactly what the system of racism, white supremacy has done to non-white people. He said, you can condition people and get them to accept information, even subconsciously, where you just continue to present that information to people over and over and over again, and they'll just act on it. They won't even question it. In a system dominated by white supremacy, nothing is repeated more often than white over non-white. He was talking about, he said, fairy tales. You got that word fair again. Fairy tales, whether it's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, whether it's Sleeping Beauty, whatever it is. I guess the new age ones with the Lion King and the Princess Frog. All of this stuff is saturated with racism, white supremacy. The films, the video games, everything saturated with racism, white supremacy. You can't turn the television on and not see racism, white supremacy. He also talked about, I feel like I was just saying pride gets in the way of progress. I just said that, and he came on the show and said that's one of the ways mind control can work, because you got to be humble to learn and get new information. You can't go out there thinking, well, I know it all, I got everything, You got to really be humble and acknowledge, I'm confused, I don't know everything. That is how you learn. I really feel like that is a critical aspect of attempting to counter racism, white supremacy, being humble, acknowledging you have been victimized and confused just like all the other non-white people. That is an integral aspect to working against racism, white supremacy, admitting the fact that you have been victimized and that you still got room. We all still got a lot of work to do, because the system of racism, white supremacy still exists. That's why I always say this. That's why you're not going to hear me say, this program is constructive, I think you should listen to it. I don't know if it is or not. I know whether it's constructive or not, it has not replaced white supremacy with justice, so there is still work to be done. There's still more that I need to learn. Here's one thing I want to do before I wrap the program up. I am going to do commercials really quick. Creed, Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer, she has a program on April 18th. April 18th. That's going to be Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon Pacific. Dark Matter will be on the program live from the United Kingdom. Should be a fabulous program. I'll be in the chat room again this Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, counter-racist, evolving engineer, and dark matter. Support our blog as well, cre7.wordpress.com. Again, cre7.wordpress.com. And please support Back at the Buses blog as well, nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com, nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com. The program for this weekend might actually end up being two programs. It should be two programs. Staying on my counter-racist grind. First program should be Racism in Film number 2. Dr. Martin Kevorkian, Khalid Patterson, talking about, I guess, some of the newer films that have come out since they were on the program in October. That will be Saturday. I haven't entered it into the computer yet because I've just been very busy, but I'll get it done today. But that'll be this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. Dr. Martin Kevorkian, Khalid Patterson, both making their third trip on the context of white supremacy. Should be very constructive. Always a privilege to have them on the broadcast. That'll be Saturday. Saturday also should begin to bear some of the fruits from the White Privilege Conference. There was a white man that I met at the conference, an admitted racist white supremacist. We talked about the conference. He had a lot of similar feelings about what we observed at the conference as what I thought. He agreed to come chat it up with us, just looking to knock down a time. Just keep checking back with the page to see when the time gets nailed down for that program, but that should also be Saturday, most likely later in the day, Saturday after the program with Dr. Kevorkian and Mr. Patterson. So that should be a double dip this Saturday, context of white supremacy, always on our counter-racist grind. Last thing I wanted to say before wrapping up the program, I hope folks tuned in to Dr. Mwalimu K. Baruti. He was on the program April 14th. He talked about his book, Excuses, which dealt with sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people and why it should not happen under conditions dominated by racism, white supremacy. And someone left comments for that program. I just wanted to read their comments. The only thing I'm going to do is change the term white for white supremacists because, as I said, even folks who are married to white people at the White Privilege Conference had concluded that white means racist white supremacist. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to read the comments and insert white supremacist for white, and we'll wrap things up. I can take the no sex with white supremacists more serious if the person said no sex with no one, including blacks. Give me death or freedom. And it's laughable for a non-black woman to say a non-white male should not have sex with a white supremacist when she's getting offers 24/7 and turning sex down when she has a buffet to Nick Pit, etc. P.S. I've never had sex with a white supremacist, and I think the no sex is more of a belief system instead of an all or nothing type deal. And the no sex thing is the no sex with racist white supremacists. So would you rather me use a non-white woman for sex or a white supremacist woman? P.S. I have never slept with a white supremacist woman. But at the same time, I'm not going to say I am not going to have sex with a white supremacist woman. That's just too big of a promise to make. Now, if you look at the comments, I did have to do a little editing on that last one just because I think either there's some typos or something, but I did not change the comment at all. I'm going to reread it just, to make sure. So would you rather me use a non-white woman for sex or a white supremacist woman? P.S. I've never slept with a white supremacist woman. But at the same time, I'm not going to say I ain't never going to have sex with a white supremacist woman. That's just too big of a promise to make. It's not the point to not see white supremacists as attractive. It's gender. It's telling a man to not find a white supremacist woman attractive. I'm still waiting for someone I'm still waiting for some concrete evidence saying you can't have sex with a white supremacist and function right. I just want to read that last sentence again. And again, all I did is take out white and put in white supremacist because, as I said, even people at the white privilege conference had concluded white means white supremacists. So I'm just going to back up, whoop, 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 read that last sentence one more time. I'm still waiting for some concrete evidence saying you can't have sex with a white supremacist and function right, as if some voodoo is going to come over you if you have sex with a white supremacist. I mean, if it's just sex. Now, if you so-called falling in love, making them your partner, that's one thing. I think this is a belief of Mr. Fuller and Dr. Welsing, and people who read the book, follow the code 100%, try to make a way to justify it. It makes you look more serious about racism, white supremacy, if you do not engage in sexual intercourse with a white supremacist. I added that because just so you'll know what he's talking about. It makes you look more serious about racism, white supremacy, if you don't engage in sexual intercourse with a white supremacist. But is it a no end all? I understand white racism, so you think I'm not going to understand it because I have sex with white supremacists. The voodoo is going to overwhelm me, ? I see if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, and you're at risk for falling in love. I mean, if white supremacists' voodoo is that strong, why talk to them? Why work for them, etc.? End all contact 100%. No business, no conversation, no words, etc. No working for them. I am neutral on the no sex with white supremacists. I'm going to go back and just read that one again. Again, all I'm changing is white for white supremacists. I'm neutral on the no sex with white supremacists. I'm just going to let that stand on its own. I have no further commentary, nothing to add about what was said. I just think it's very interesting that the program with Stephen Jacobson on mind control directly followed Dr. Baruti's program on sexual intercourse with white people, where I think he spoke a lot about the psychological warfare that is waged against victims of racism, white supremacy, that results in non-white people being interested in having sex with white people in the first place. But, you know, I could be incorrect. I could be wrong. Think for yourself. I think that was what Stephen Jacobson said a lot. Think for yourself. Critically analyze. Don't just absorb things and, you know, run off with that as though it's a Bible. Just think for yourself. If, you know, you think it would be constructive for non-white people, victims of racism, white supremacy, to be neutral on not having sex with racists, white supremacists. Just, you know, think for yourself, see what you come up with. We will be back Saturday, probably twice Saturday, but at least once Saturday. Dr. Martin Kevorkian, one of my favorite guests, and Khalid Patterson, also one of my favorite guests, together on the same show for the second time to discuss racism, white supremacy, and film. Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. Should be a hoot. I will be watching films between now and then. I think that will wrap us for the program. My switchboard died immediately, so I can't bring people on. Not that I was going to do it anyway. I wasn't going to chat today. I'm going to watch films and do something constructive with my evening. Thank you all for tuning in to the broadcast. I hope it was constructive, and if not, I hope you will not be back to the cows if you don't think what we're doing here is constructive. Thank you, everybody, for the support, and replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. And I guess if I had a final word, no sex with white people. Thank you.